Hi everyone, my name is Laurel Murphy and I will be presenting my Keystone project titled Foot Voting in a Post-Dobbs World, How Young Americans Are Fighting Beyond the Ballot Box to Maintain Reproductive Autonomy. Before diving in, I want to thank my advisor, Dr. Catherine Levine Einstein, for her continuous support and guidance throughout this project. So to begin, I'd like you all to join me in a quick thought experiment. I want you to mentally fill in the blanks in this sentence or imagine how someone you know might. If blank wins the election, I'm moving to blank. So hopefully that was enough time to think about this. For some of you, this might have come very easily. You might have even said this exact sentence before. If so, you're one of many Americans currently voicing desires to vote by foot to express dissatisfaction with the local, state, or federal political regime that you're living under. And at the root of my research project is determining whether Americans are realizing these stated desires to vote by foot. So what is foot voting? In my project, I conceptualize it in two forms. One, choosing to move to a locality that's reflective of your policy preferences, and two, choosing to migrate out of a locality to express political dissatisfaction. And this is derived from an economic theory called the Tybo hypothesis, which essentially says that citizens will move to communities, states, or localities that are reflective of their policy preferences and provide their desired levels of public goods, local amenities, etc. And it assumes that citizens have full mobility to move wherever they'd like, which is usually not the case. So if you've never heard the term foot voting before, you've probably seen it or heard about it in some iteration in the media. It's a very relevant topic these days, as many researchers are predicting that as political polarization in the US continues to increase, more and more people will move to states that are reflective of their policy preferences, and geographic polarization will result, which means that we'll see more Democrats in blue states and more Republicans in red states. So, journey to my topic, how did I go from foot voting as a concept to foot voting and abortion access? It's important to think of foot voting as a product of federalism. Federalism is the system that allows for us to have policies made at the federal, state, and local level, and policy decentralization occurs when a policy goes from being made at the federal level to being made at the state and local level. So policy decentralization is really what drives variation in things like local economies and demographics across states. So because economic policies are historically decentralized, foot voting has historically been linked with economic factors like job opportunities and housing costs. However, as of 2023, 67% of Americans believe non-economic issues to be more important than economic issues. This raises the question if today we might see more Americans voting by foot when it comes to non-economic issues than ever before. And the decentralization of abortion policy in the 2022 Dobbs v. Jackson decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, allows for an interesting investigation into whether social policies like abortion policy, which was decentralized in this ruling, are going to motivate foot voting today. So to investigate this, I had two guiding questions that informed an academic paper that I wrote. So one, are young college-educated Americans voting by foot when it comes to abortion? And two, among young college-educated Americans, who is most likely to vote by foot when it comes to abortion? So to answer these questions, I administered a survey to college students across the United States, and there were two key questions in the survey that informed my analysis. One, where in the United States do you plan on residing upon graduating? And two, I asked respondents to rank the following factors in order of importance when considering where to move upon graduating. And I was most interested in where they ranked reproductive health laws on this list. I considered anyone who ranked reproductive health laws in the top 5 factors to consider abortion a salient issue when deciding where to move. And I considered anyone who ranked reproductive health laws in the top 5 and indicated that they plan on moving to an abortion-productive state as a foot voter when it comes to abortion. So an overview of my sample, I ended up with 256 usable responses from 18 to 24-year-olds enrolled in undergraduate and graduate programs across the United States. And my sample was primarily female, and across females, primarily Democrat. Across males, we had a good balance across political identities, and you'll see that household income is almost normally distributed across household income levels. So with my survey results, I conducted multiple regression analyses to test three main hypotheses. One, young Americans who consider abortion a salient issue are moving to protective states at higher rates than other young Americans upon graduating. Two, young female-identifying Americans are more likely to vote by foot when it comes to abortion than other young Americans. And three, young female Democrat-identifying Americans are more likely to vote by foot when it comes to abortion than other young Democrat-identifying Americans. And in these analyses, I controlled for the confounding effects of gender, race, income level, and political party. So, after running these regressions, in terms of my findings, I found that by and large, young college-educated Americans are not voting by foot when it comes to abortion. You'll see in the map on your left my samples, post-graduation movement plans, so primarily moving to California, Texas, Florida, New York. Those are the darkest states, indicating the most people are planning to move there. And the map on your right shows abortion status by state. So we'll see that states like California and New York are abortion protective, where a lot of people are moving, but states like Texas and Florida are abortion restrictive, where a lot of people are also moving. So we don't see that college-educated Americans are really considering abortion status when deciding where to move. I did find that movement decisions continue to be driven by historically salient factors like job opportunities and housing affordability. And this is reflected when you look at the maps in the top row. You'll see that the movement plans of my sample and the job opportunities across US states as of 2024 are starkly similar. Job opportunities are most dense in California, Texas, Florida, and New York. And you also see in the map in the bottom row that areas like Texas and Florida have very low medium home values compared to other US states, making them even more attractive places for young Americans to move because they're job dense and affordable. I also identified a significant positive relationship between income and abortion foot voter status, indicating that people of higher income level are more likely to vote by foot when it comes to abortion, or even able to consider this as an option. So, conclusions and directions for future research. Foot voting remains an accessible form of protest, or foot voting when it comes to abortion remains an accessible form of protest to those who can afford it, which indicates that we might see geographic polarization in terms of income level, but it's less likely to see that in terms of political identity when that comes to abortion. And then two directions for future research. It would be interesting to look into how a person's interactions with the reproductive healthcare system might affect their likelihood to vote by foot when it comes to abortion. And as we see more and more reproductive rights stripped away in the United States, how might these findings change? Thank you.
Thank you. We will now come around for anyone that has any questions. We'll start back here.
Thanks, Lulu, for this presentation. When I was thinking about access to abortion, sometimes it doesn't matter exactly what state you're in, so much as just like how far the closest clinic that can provide an abortion is. Can you imagine a way of doing future research where you're thinking about like moving to a place that is like within driving distance of an abortion, rather than thinking about it as like moving to a state that has abortion protection laws?
Yeah, totally. I think it would require using a lot more local level data and maybe having a map of abortion centers and abortion deserts and kind of overlaying that over where people are planning to move. And that would be super interesting to look at kind of the density around abortion deserts versus areas with a lot of abortion care in a specific radius.
So I have a question about foot voting. Is it just like directly politically motivated, like Democrats are going to move to Democratic states, or are there other ways that foot voting manifests itself?
Yeah, so like I said, foot voting is actually started as, or derived from an economic theory, which says that citizens are going to move to places that are reflective of their policy preferences and their desired levels of public goods, local amenities. So whether you want to or not, basically everything you do outside of your home is foot voting, where you get your coffee on a given day. The park you walk in your lunch break, that is foot voting because you're emphasizing to your local officials, your state officials, your government, what you care about, what matters to you, where you spend your money is foot voting.
Any other question? Oh, right here. Yep.
I was just wondering, like, if there is maybe like, I don't know, backwards foot voting, that people are actually moving to these areas because they know that that state does not allow for abortion, but they are in favor of it. So maybe more people would be moving there to try to change the policies if it is state decided. Do you think that that might be a factor?
I think that'd be a really hopeful thing to do. I think the fact that foot voting, when it comes to abortion, is already closely tied to income, and it shows disparities in who is able to consider this as an option, makes me think that that would be pretty unlikely, just because I don't know how many people are willing to give up their rights to try to change people's minds, who unfortunately probably will not be changed. But it would be cool if there are people out there doing
Maybe an
that.
unexpected result, you know?
Yeah, that would be very cool.
Hi Lulu, I really enjoyed watching your presentation, and I was wondering what the most surprising or interesting piece of information you found was.
I just thought it was very cool to identify a significant relationship between foot voting when it comes to abortion and income level, and not cool because it's kind of unfortunate, but it really shows that, like, would more people be doing this if there were less economic constraints in the current state that we're living in? I think it's very unfortunate that a lot of people are locked into where they live with these restrictive policies because they're unable to vote by foot.
I think we have time for like one more question. Does anyone want to take the last question? Okay, give it up for Lulu.